I'm with AAC Distributing, and I'm here today with Tony, the CEO of our company, who has been doing WCO work for a very long time. How many years, Tony?
Probably 21, 22 years. 22
years? Okay, well, that's a lot of inspections. So he knows exactly what to look for when it comes to wildlife. Why don't you give us a rundown of what we're going to be doing today, Tony?
Sure. Where it usually starts, Susan, is we get a call from a homeowner who's hearing, noises in their attic, scratching in the walls or running back and forth in their soffit. And so what I want to do is just give you some ideas of things to look for on your house for animals getting in, like animal entrance points. A couple tools that you might have around the house that will work. Sometimes you can use a compact mirror or a hand mirror of any kind, and a flashlight. And you'll see as we go around the foundation of the house, this will help you locate the entrance points where the critters are getting in. So Susan, the steps by the front door are really, it's a normal spot for critters to get in. And if you look down here, you can see that there's some dirt here and debris. This tells you something's going on. Normally you don't have a pile of dirt in the middle of your rocks unless something's going on. The other thing you look for is you'll see little pieces of acorns and chewing down here. See these little white fragments? And if you take your mirror and you look up in there, you can see right there where the critters are getting in. There's even some hair right there and a brown smudge where they're sliding up in there. Around here with these nut trees, it's like a feeding ground for squirrels and mice and whatnot to get in. The other thing you look for is these screens on these foundation vents. These are notorious for getting busted out. You can see how easy they rip. A lot of times they're vinyl screens, or after a while the galvanized screen will just wear out. And the critters, all they got to do is take a claw or their teeth and just rip right through and they're in the house. So you want to get a cover for that. And a cover that breathes. Some other things you want to look for, and that's what's great about a mirror and a flashlight, is you can run this right along the foundation. And you can see where the sill plate sits on the foundation, the block itself. A lot of times when they do it, they don't seal it up. And so the critters will run right up the side of those cinder blocks and go right in underneath the bottom sill plate and into the house.
Okay, so when you have an animal that is getting in and to your attic, you're probably going to hear it either in the soffits or in your ceiling, or... Yeah,
a lot of times what they'll do is they'll come in these outside vinyl corners. A lot of people don't know it, but this is a hollow access point that runs all the way up into the soffit here. And once they get into the soffit, they can run down and they can jump over all the rafter tails. And they'll either hear the running like that in the soffit, or what'll happen is they'll get down underneath the insulation on top of the sheetrock, and it sounds really loud, and a lot of times they'll say it's a lot bigger than what it is. They'll start scratching and gnawing, and it'll wake them up in the middle of the night, and that's a sure sign, obviously, you've got something in.
Yeah, and a lot of times when they're getting in corner posts like this, is there any sign, besides getting down with your mirror, is there any signs that maybe you should check that, like smudges or things like we did on the foundation?
That's a great question, Susan. Down here, a lot of times, what you'll see fragmentations of insulation, like right there. Okay, yeah. And sometimes you'll see nuts piled up right here where they'll have a food stash.
Gotcha.
Other times, I've even seen sawdust from them running up there so many times that the sawdust from the outside corner of the OSB board will be piled up right there.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So these are hot spots for critters, whether it's mice, whether it's pine squirrels, rats even. Other things that people don't know is you get snakes in your attics. Did you know that?
I did.
But yeah, what happened is the mouse urine, or the pheromones they put off, what they'll do is the snakes will follow that, and they'll see that the mice is going right up here, and they'll follow that right up. A guy just posted the other night that he found 17 snake skins in his attic.
That's a little unnerving.
Yes.
I know we've had a lot of homeowners call and ask us about soffit noises and those sorts of things. So what are we looking for in the soffit areas, in the eave areas?
Sure. Eave to soffits are real trouble. I mean, they bring in all sorts of critters. Raccoons love eave to soffits. And when you're in an area where there's a lot of oak trees and there's nuts, squirrels love these soffits. And as you can see, if you can get the camera up in there, you can see there's been something digging around up in here. And the more you look at it, you'll see somebody is putting some flashing up there. So that tells you at one point something's pushed the soffit up. They've got extra screws in it right there, but it pushes up real easy, and especially right where it hits the roof line. So it's like a doggy door. It's a one-way flapper door. They can go right in and go back out of it. But once they get in there, they can cause a lot of damage to insulation, and we find litter boxes and ceilings, and it just ends up deteriorating the drywall.
And I assume you'll be able to hear them once they get into the Eave to Soffit area.
That's a good question, because some people tell us, well, it just started happening, and we get up there and obviously we can tell it's been going on for years. If they're not home in the evenings, maybe they work nights or something, they don't know what's going on. The other thing is too is if the animal gets on top of the insulation, the noise is insulated from inside. Unlike where I discussed about the mice getting underneath the insulation, a raccoon will stay on top of the insulation a lot of times.
We're at garbage cans.
Garbage cans.
Yeah.
The old trash pandas.
Yes.
Yes, those are raccoons. God gave them a little mask for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They're bandits. They like to get into everything. And if you can see right here, you've got a little paw print with some claws on the end of it right there where they like to get in. Make sure that you secure your trash cans, because just bringing them up close to the house like this, and if a lot of times this lid is no challenge for a raccoon whatsoever. And if you're feeding the raccoons, obviously you're going to have them hanging around your house, and eventually they're going to be into your house.
So I see like a little bit of broken seal here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a critter?
Well, I'll tell you what, Susan, these are hot spots for them. It doesn't look like one was able to breach that yet, but obviously they started chewing on that. And if you pull it back, you feel they get brittle over time, and they're real easy for mice and chipmunks and whatnot to get in. I don't feel like there's anything in there, but this is a hot spot for them to come in. So always keep an eye. You'll know when they're chewing. You'll see this, or you'll see fragmentations laying out in front from them chewing. So keep an eye on that. The other thing, while we're here, if you look over here, there's an inside corner. So take your handy mirror and your flashlight and look up this inside corner. And you'll see it's opened up in there. And once they get up in there, they're in the foundation of the house. And once they're in the foundation of the house, they got full reign of the whole place. So around these garage doors, I know we talked about the seals on the other side. The other thing to look for, if you see this trim board, a lot of people don't know this when they buy a house, but you'll see where the water splashes down and comes up here, it starts weakening this, and you start getting rot in there. Well, once you get rot in there, what happens is it allows for animals to get in there. Chipmunks and snakes and mice, everything gets in there. But as you can see, too, over a period of time, this starts pulling away from there and leaves a great hole for them to come in. So keep an eye on this. Obviously, you want to get some sealing in here or whatnot. Like I said before, hire a professional. They've got caps that they can put over here and clean it all up, make it look nice for you.
So I see we have a screen on the deck here. How and why do we know that we would need something like this?
Well, decks are notorious for critters getting underneath them. Basically, you've made a den site for them. You've given them shelter over the top. You've given them a nice, cozy place in the shade, especially for in the summer. Groundhogs, even skunks. Sometimes raccoons will get underneath there. We've even had jobs where we've went and found fox underneath there. And what spiked that call was that they were smelling dead animals. And Mama Fox was bringing all the dead carcasses in and feeding her young with them. But so if you have a deck, you definitely want to put some type of barrier. A lot of times raccoons will come underneath there and leave droppings underneath there, and you don't want to breed the spores from their droppings. So you want to put in a barrier of some kind. There's various materials. You want something that can't be dug out, can't be pulled out. And whoever put this barrier in was obviously a professional. That's why you want to hire a professional. But what they did was they brought the wire down and brought it out. So when the animal digs, he's actually on top of the wire, and he can't get underneath it. And you'll see that a lot of times. People put blocks. I think on the other side of this garage, that somebody put some blocks there, and they'll just dig underneath those blocks and end up getting in anyhow.
So before you call a professional, are there signs that the animal's getting under there, like particularly any like digging spots? Or
Sure. A lot of times when you have a deck that's closer to a ground level deck, you'll see it all dug out and the dirt kicked back where something's been getting underneath there. Other times, it'll be just the smell, Susan. I mean, there'll be they'll be pooping underneath there, or maybe there'll be something dead underneath there that'll give them, or maybe somebody will come out their door and they'll hear an animal scurry around in there. So if you're going to build a deck, you definitely want to put a barrier around it.
So we're walking along, and Tony noticed something that I, as a homeowner and a person who has never done any sort of wildlife work, would have never noticed. And so it's a really good example of why you would need to call a professional to take care of any noises that you're hearing.
Well, what caught my eye, I was standing off to the other side by the drive as we were coming around, and I could see that this siding is bubbled out right here. So that's obviously not typical. So it tells me something's been pulling or pushing on it and pulled it away from the house. So I thought what I'd do is take a look. Obviously you can see, you're starting to see nuts close by. There's another one right here. So I take my mirror, I look up in there, and you can see right here where animals been chewing on the insulation and pulling at the insulation. And they've actually penetrated a vapor barrier in there. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Get that closed up right away.
We were talking about deck barriers earlier, and I see we have some sort of brick barrier here. How do you feel about these?
Well, it tells me they had a critter problem, Susan, and they started piling blocks up here to try to stop animals from getting underneath there. You can see they even put some shingles down.
Mm-hmm.
And what will happen is when you do this, it supports their den digging. Obviously, there's nothing digging underneath right here, but if they were to dig, the blocks actually help them. Okay, it'll support their den that they're digging as they're getting underneath it. As you walk around here, let's kind of look at this spot right here. Come down close here, and you can see that there's some hair right there where the critter's been going in and out of there. I'm guessing on this one here, as small as it is, they're probably getting chipmunks in there. So this is a good thought. A lot of homeowners do it. To me, it's a red flag. It tells me, there's been something living in here. That's why when we talked about the wire barriers, to bring it out here, it stops them from even digging underneath there. Then you don't have to pile all this stuff around your shed or deck or whatnot. But if you walk around here, this little ramp, this is where the ramp would be removed by a professional. He'd put in your barrier, and then he'd put the ramp back in, and you wouldn't have this problem. But as you zero in here, you can see what's going on. See the animal piled up the dirt like I talked about on the front of the house. It's all piled up right here where they dug it out to get underneath there. So once again, you want to get a professional out. You want them to move all this stuff out of here and put in a really nice, secure barrier to exclude any animals from getting underneath there. Okay, let's keep walking around here, looking for other entrance points.
I noticed on this side of the garage, they have, I don't know, some sort of mesh. Is this an adequate sort of barrier?
Well, it's an attempt, but the problem is, as you can see, plastic is no challenge for all types of critters getting in. And so this is just a temporary fix. Number one, an animal can put his claws in there and rip that right back, and he's in. Okay, so that actually is never going to work over a period of time. It does look a bit better than just a big open hole, but it's not going to work. And as you can see, we talked at the front of the house about these outside vinyl corners. And as they get old, they get really brittle and they crack. And a lot of times you'll see on other homes, not so much here because it's rock, but you'll see where the guys with the weed eaters will walk around the house and they'll hit it with their weed eater. Once they hit it with the weed eater, they blow it up. And once they blow it up, it provides easy access for the animals to get in. So in this situation, obviously a professional will remove this plastic and he put down a heavy-duty galvanized pest guard of some kind to exclude the animals for long term. This is just a short term, and I don't even think it would work. Obviously, it's not stopping anything from getting in there.
When a professional comes out to inspect your house, what would come next? After they do the foundation inspection, a professional would then...
Well, usually we do a couple walk-arounds because it's notorious for missing. You're going to miss something. A lot of times even guys will bring a second guy in because another set of eyes always help. But do a couple laps around the bottom, and then we do the same on the top. You want to obviously look for things on the roof line. Get your ladder off the truck and get up there. I'm not going to get up there today, but if you look, these roof vents here, okay, they suck air through the soffit and they pull air out so your attic doesn't overheat. But those, whether they're aluminum or whether they're plastic, they're so easy to be accessed by wildlife, whether it's raccoons, whether it's squirrels, mice, snakes, everything will get in there, bats. And so you want to make sure that you check those out really good and get a mirror up underneath them, because a lot of times they just put little flimsy vinyl bug screen in it, and that won't stop anything. The other thing you can see is there's a couple other vents up there. You got to really be careful. Once again, that's why you want to hire a professional, because there's just some vents you can't close down, for fire hazard reasons. So you want to make sure that you check the vents that you can close down. You can put a pest guard over them to keep the animals out. But other ones you want to leave open, obviously, so they breathe adequately.
So part of hiring a WCO or a wildlife control operator would be that they understand how the airflow is supposed to work in a house.
Right.
And so they'll know how to close that without causing any sort of issues.
Exactly. Susan, as we were doing an inspection over here, I couldn't help but notice the gable end vent on this house. This is a magnet for bats. They love to land on the side of there and get in. Sometimes a raccoon will actually reach right over and rip those louvered vents wide open. Let me see if I can shine a light on there. I don't know if you all can see, but there's tears in that screen, so something's been going in and out of there. So you definitely want to get some vent covers on that.
So we noticed the gable vent, and above it.
Yeah, that's your ridge vent there. Obviously, there's not one on this house over here. Ridge vents are a gap that's cut from one end of the roof to the other end of the roof that pulls air through. A lot of times, if you have a ridge vent, you don't need a gable end vent, but probably what happened was originally it didn't have a ridge vent on it. It only vented with gable end vents. Well, when they put a new roof on now, it's pretty standard that they put a ridge vent in. But what you're trying to do is pull the air through the soffit. There's very few soffit vents on the house, so probably this roof, the first roof, went pretty fast because it wasn't getting proper airflow. But ridge vents are they cause so much problems for homeowners. The critters will get in from the sides of it. Even if they try to screw it down or nail it down, they just end up getting in there.
And I know a professional or two who have done this type of work. The plastic gets heat exposure and cracks, right?
Yeah. You can see from here. You can see the waves on that ridge vent as it goes up and down like that. And a lot of those you can get up there and you get your whole hand in there. And so a professional, obviously, he put a product on there called Ridge Guard, and that'll solve that problem from the animals getting in.
Okay, so we have completed our home inspection here. I want to let you know at AAC Distributing, we have certified installers that are trained professionals that can help you with any of the areas that we touched on today. But if you want to do a home inspection yourself and kind of evaluate whether or not you have an animal, Tony, tell us what we need to look for one more time.
Sure. What you want to do first, obviously, call a wildlife control professional. They can contact our certified installers on our website, can't they?
They can, yeah.
But the thing is you want to make sure that you go over all your foundation, looking for foundation gaps, foundation vents, outside corners, inside corners, and then get up on the roof, do roof inspection, look for your roof vents, ridge vents, gable end vents. Even sometimes there's rotting around the gutters. You don't notice unless you start pulling back some shingles and whatnot. But that's a brief inspection. Hopefully things like that would help you to determine whether you need to call a professional or not.